what I like about this, because I managed a CRC for years, and the main job of being the CEO of a CRC was to look after IP, because that's what everybody wanted to know about. What were the projects generating and what were we doing with it? So we've set this demonstration up around the different classes of IP. So we've put breeders' rights, copyright, domain names, and patents in as the program areas. So you're basically managing an IP asset class as a program, and then each of the IP assets comes up as a project underneath that program area. So if we go and look at the portfolio, is that what I was going to do next? Let's just look at the portfolio quickly. So in addition to that, we've set it up so that you go from an initial registration all the way through to a sale. But again, those gates and those phases can be anything you like. So, and then when you bring projects in, you can have each of these IP assets inherit some tasks around what has to happen in that phase. So for instance, if we go in and look at this livestock tag and trace one, when that project was imported from the master spreadsheet that we use to configure the system, it brought in some basic tasks. So there's a patent search, there's an application, there's a publication, eventually there's an acceptance of that patent, and then there's a reminder and a notification about what you might have to do next with it. So the system is set up so that all those tasks are inherited by the patent project when it comes in. So that piece of IP that comes in, then you know what you're doing and on what time frame and what it's going to cost. So then as we progress along the pipeline, let's say we get to where we've got the patent and now we want to start licensing it. So one of the phases on the pipeline is licensing, and now we're coming in and we see, okay, well, I'm getting ready to do licensing. I need to do my due diligence. I need to identify some opportunities, do a business plan, look at how am I going to contract it, and hopefully and eventually I'm invoicing, and then I'm being reminded that there may have to be a review of all the licenses or the markets that we might be looking at. So the system's set up to help you look at what needs to be done and on what time frame, and then it can come back and remind you of things that need to be done as a follow-up.
So that's where you'd put payments due to IP Australia, for example.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. And then so just to finish up, if we go back out to the portfolio area, what we've done here is we've estimated some costs. So you can see that over the time period, so each of these bands represents one piece of IP and the costs that are incurred over that time frame. And then we can see the income that we are aiming at achieving. So we're aiming at that full portfolio of IP achieving a certain target. And then if you look down here on this timeline, you can see that this is the zero line here, that we, based on the forecast that we've got, we're well and truly profiting from the way that we're commercializing that IP. So you get these views of the present and the future, and we can go in if we decide that, well, I overestimated those costs, or I've underestimated those income streams. You go in and you adjust them in real time, and you can see the effect on the full portfolio of those adjustments.
And it means that for any particular piece of IP, you could say, okay, it's going to cost us this, like this. It's going to look like this in the beginning. It's going to cost.
That's right.
But ultimately, it'll be worth it because
it's going to return.
Yeah. So if we go back to the cost one, and if we go into the cost and then go into one of the patent ones. There's normally on a patent there's a big upfront cost for huge. So there's a massive cost, but then not that much going through. So we've made up some values just to illustrate it, but that's generally what would happen with a patent. You've got a big cost up front, and then 10 years later you've got to do it again. But otherwise,
unless you get to defend.
On the pipeline here we've got infringement, divest, sale, certification, international registration, enforcement. So if you're trying to enforce a patent like CSIRO had to do with the Wi-Fi stuff, you've got massive costs, but again, massive upside on the other part of it. And you can model all that and see if I'm going to spend $1 billion defending my Wi-Fi patent and I'm only going to get $1 billion back, maybe I shouldn't do it. Or if I'm going to get 6 or 10 back, then it's a good thing to do. And this thing helps guide you and direct you and govern the activity around making sure you do the right thing at the right time.
I'll just